Unless you are a Leeds fan that has been living under a rock, you will be aware that Leeds United are eyeing up a couple of free moves in the last few days. Harry Wilson we've known about for quite a while now, but Julian Brandt has been sort of dragged into the picture, and the situation around Leeds' moves in the early stages of the transfer window is starting to get a little bit clearer, but it's also inviting a few more questions and answering a few different questions. So in this video I'm going to do a little bit of a dive not into the individual stories of Julian Brandt and of Harry Wilson, but what it means as a sort of combined narrative and the direction that the club is going to be heading in terms of transfers. To begin with, I will do the very basics of these stories, but then we'll get into a little bit of the deeper diving stuff. So, first of all, Harry Wilson, currently at Fulham, sort of. Contract is expiring, he's not signed a new one yet, and there is plenty of interest in signing him from Leeds United. And currently, we are, I believe, reported to be the favourites to get that deal done. But there is also interest from Everton and from Aston Villa in getting his signature and getting him on a free, which would be an absolutely fantastic coup for Leeds United, especially if it's a case of stumping those two clubs. Be genuinely fantastic for us. The Julian Brandt story is one that has emerged far more recently, whereas the Harry Wilson one has been at least 12 months of interest. Julian Brandt we're just learning about now. He is leaving Borussia Dortmund on a free. He's currently 30 years of age, I believe. But there is a lot of interest. There is a lot of competition, including from Champions League clubs, including from presumably other Premier League clubs, other Bundesliga clubs, which will make things incredibly complicated to get done. Now, that's the basics of the stories. I think the most important part that we need to talk about right now is what it means for the overall sort of narrative and structure of the transfer window. So, first of all, there is a little bit of a question mark around whether we sign one of them or both of them. And this is quite an interesting little bit of the conversation, because if it's a case of we are going to play the same system as last season, the sort of five defenders, but not really, because you could never call Jayden Bogle an actual defender, with two central midfielders and three in the front line, in that case it makes sense to just have one of them. So Harry Wilson potentially playing on the right flank, doing the sort of cutting in stuff that Brendan Aronson did whilst Bogle overlaps him. Julian Brandt doing a sort of similar job if we get one of the two. However, if we get both of the two, that, in my opinion, signals a fairly significant tactical shift away from that five at the back towards four at the back all over again. Because in that case, you aren't exactly going to sign Harry Wilson, incredible top quality Premier League starting player, and Julian Brandt, also incredible Premier League top quality, fantastic footballer. Neither of those players are going to come to Leeds United in order to not start. Admittedly, Daniel Farke's approach tends to be that you need to earn your way into the side, and naturally, obviously, you've got a little bit of an advantage of being signed because that shows that the club sort of wants you to play in the first place. But there's no sort of free pass into the first 11 with Daniel Farke, which is a good thing. But at the same time, if neither of these players are convinced that they're going to be playing, they're not going to sign a contract. In the event that we do sign both, I think it's more likely we end up in a situation where Wilson plays out on the right flank, Julian Brandt plays on the inside, something along those lines. Our tactical shape and structure will depend quite heavily on the deals that we get done, and I think there's a fairly big indicator to be found there as to what we will be doing in the early stages of the season. Daniel Farke has specifically mentioned wanting to go back to a sort of more attractive style of play, which to me doesn't exactly scream five at the back. And in my opinion, getting both of these players would be a key part of that, because we need good ball progressors, we need good passers in order to get back to that. However, these two signings don't just mean stuff for on the pitch deals, it also means stuff off the pitch. So, first of all, it follows in the legacy of Leeds United under the 49ers making some very, very astute signings, either for free or for very, very, very limited fees. Outanaka, if I remember correctly, was under £4 million, similar for Ilya Gruev. Sam Byram was a free, and admittedly he didn't play a significant role in the Championship or last season, but he was still here and he played a fairly big role. Carl Darlow cost something like £100,000 for us and has been genuinely fantastic Premier League standard goalkeeping while still being happy to sit around a little bit. Calvert-Lewin speaks for himself. Genuinely spectacular first season in the Premier League and hopefully keeps it up. Lucas Mecha, incredible backup, got I believe 6 or 7 goals off the bench, which is a decent sum for the minutes that he got. These two show that the 49ers know what they're doing when it comes to not shelling out cash. A lot of people have looked at the 49ers year after year after year after year, and they've gone, oh, doing it on the cheap again, are we? And the only real response to that is that a problem? Because it's not a case of doing it on the cheap if it works. In that case, it's just not overspending. Because if you look at what's happened in recent seasons, first season, 90 points, normally gets you up. Fine, it didn't. Second season, 100 points, spectacular. Neither of those seasons did we throw money at the wall just because we could. Back in the Premier League, again, more astute signings. We're not going to break transfer records. Yeah, sure, spent a fair bit on the likes of Anton Stach, who I believe was 18 million quid, be all similar sort of numbers. But there was no 40 million pound player. It is ultimately a sign that we are very, very good at allocating the funds that we have into positions that we need. And I believe that the two free signings add on to this, not only in the case that those two themselves won't cost a significant sum of money, because obviously they won't, because sure, wages cost a fair bit, signing on bonus costs a fair bit, but having the players themselves doesn't mean you pay a fee to another club, which means that you've opened up another massive chunk of cash. Harry Wilson, let's say that we would have spent £8 to £10 million last summer. That's £8 to £10 million that we've got available to put into one of the positions that we badly need this season. Same for Julian Brandt. If we were to sign him last season, it'd be 10 to 15 million, I guess. This season, if we get him on a free, that is one spot in the squad that is now taken up that we don't need to spend money on. So for another striker, for example, we can put in another 5 million quid and just gazump another side because we've given ourselves the financial leeway to do it. You can massively upgrade on what your centre-back looks like by saying, look, we've got another 10 million quid. Rather than spending £30 million on an alright centre-back, you could make that jump for a Diamande or somewhere along those lines. This sort of consistent money saving is a strong trend throughout how the 49ers like to work. And the reason I've put in the thumbnail that it sets out a perfect summer window is that the way that we want to approach things, and we have approached things since the 49ers got in, is intelligent spending of money. And when you spend bigger amounts of money, you spend it on a target that you actually want. So Paixão, for example, we were going to sign for that big chunk of cash because we thought he would do the job for us, and he very, very probably would have done the job for us. In the end, we didn't get the nice special shiny thing that we wanted, so we're like, okay, we'll go back to our standard way of doing things. Noah Okafor, 18 million quid. Brilliant. Fantastic stuff. That sort of ability to be reserved with money when necessary is something that I think is massively underrated by our fan base, and has led to us building a very, very, very solid squad since they came in as the main owners. Since the Championship, we've been doing a pretty damn good job in every single transfer window, and I think this is a continuation of it. So keep an eye on the Wilson deal, keep an eye on the Brandt deal. I think they're signposts of what is to come, and hopefully we sign at least one of them. Both of them would be interesting, and we'll see where we go after that. Hopefully to the top half of the Premier League, we'll find out. But anyway, that was just a quick video getting thoughts out of my head. If you enjoyed, like the video, subscribe, comment, I guess, that'd be nice. But I'm going to leave that there. Yeah. I'm finishing this recording at exactly midnight. That's kind of cool. Anyway, hope you enjoyed. Ta-ra. See you next time.